responsible, but not solely responsible for perpetuating.
That's right.
Other people around it were going, like, she had Sequoia Capital on board and stuff like that, and they were all just like, "You're amazing. There's something amazing about you." And then she just went, "I can do anything. I can do absolutely anything."
Yeah, I can totally see how you might end up in a situation actually where you dig so far you can't just get out of it. You can't ever fess up. You just got to roll it to the end.
Yeah.
And that's what she did. We're talking about Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes and this documentary, which I need to see. Anyway, folks, we're live. So welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on Air. It's episode 99. Would you believe it, Adam? With the 99 of these shows. Absolutely incredible. Centenary next week. So I just want to say before I kick off anything, just thank you everybody who's watched these webinars and watched these live streams and enjoyed them. When Adam and I started this, it was never any plan for a series, any plan for anything really. We were just shooting the breeze. But the fact that we've got it to almost 100 episodes is basically testament to you lot showing interest in the show and just keeping watching. So thank you so much for your support. We're going to keep on doing this. It's definitely one of the highlights of my week. I know it's highlight Adam's week because he's got no life at all. So this is your big bonus, isn't it?
Can I just add something to that, please? Because the whole format and everything, and you're entirely responsible for it. It's a lot better than it was at the beginning. And if at the beginning, it felt like this is not bad, but I think it feels like it's a lot better than it was back then. If we went back and looked at episode, somewhere between 1 and 10. We'd probably be slightly cringed at the format and all that kind of thing. It's a lot better now.
Do you know what it was? It was actually Clubhouse before Clubhouse. So the initial idea behind Brainfood Live was that you actually have a communal show where everybody could just come in and have a chat. But because it's video, it turned out that the people who were calling on were just very shy to come on video. This is pre-COVID, right? So no one was that familiar with Zoom or anything like that. No one would come on, and we would just like have an empty room. It's like really embarrassing. So
really quick question, by the way. So you're an Apple guy, right? Aren't you? So
I am. Yeah.
Have you been on Clubhouse?
I have, yeah. I've been on a few times. I've listened more than I've participated. I'm going to do one with the Ukrainian recruiting community next week. So they've invited me to have a Q&A with them, which I'm happy to do because I miss Ukraine. Kiev, great city. But yeah, I'm ambivalent as to whether it's the right or wrong thing. It's difficult to get into sometimes. It's a bit noisy, and sometimes it's a little bit long in terms of how long it takes for people to say stuff.
Is it not just like a conference call with everybody talking over each other? I've not been on it because I hate Apple, really, to be honest, or I hate iPhones. But is it not just like everybody talking over each other?
Yeah, there's a moderator, so you can set who can talk. So similar to this, let's say we can technically invite on 6 people on this show, and it can just pop in and talk. And Clubhouse will be the same, but you can invite unlimited people, as far as I know. So it can be a cacophony. But typically what happens is you get a moderator, you get a few people on stage, they speak, they get rolled on, rolled off. So in some respects, it's similar to Brainfood, where we kind of bring people on and off the show. As I say, the original vibe was that. It was designed for this purpose. But we're video, that's audio turns out to be easier to do. So anyway, listen, just a quick sound check because we're going to kick this off. We are multicasting, folks. If you can hear me on Crowdcast, can you say hi? I think you can because some people are commenting. We are going out on LinkedIn as well. Always dodgy LinkedIn, have no clue whether it works. If you can hear me okay on LinkedIn, can you just give me some sort of like emoji thing? Whether it's, that was curious or insightful or whatever those weird emojis are. Let me know whether you can hear me okay, and we'll be able to continue the show with no hiccups. And we're on Facebook, folks, on the Facebook group. I think we're live there. So if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, get on with it, that kind of thing. Thank you, Daniela. Appreciate it. Quick word to our sponsors, folks. We've got a new sponsor this week. It's CA3 Employer Branding Specialists. They are a very cool business out of the UK and Ireland who do a fantastic kind of a boutique employer brand consultancy. So they're the type of business that's really going to build relationships with you. They're not a huge organization that's going to send in account managers. You're going to be speaking with the founding team. You're going to be speaking with people that really care about their own brand. So if you really want to get your story out and communicate with your audience in this new world, you should check out CA3. They are a super company, also producing some really cool products as well, which we're going to talk about hopefully in later shows. But check them out. I've just shared them on the link stream. Okay, great show ahead. We are talking employer branding, folks, in a remote first world. I started off a bit of controversy on LinkedIn to say, you know what, maybe it's all a little bit BS, but it's going to be a case where we've got more people, intelligent people coming on to the show to tell me why I'm wrong. But before we get into it, we always review the newsletter. So let's do that but real quick. Adam, great to see you back in the hot seat as ever. Did you read the newsletter last week? And if so, what was interesting?
Yep, I did. A few things. The first one is I was really excited and then disappointed to read the headline on one of them, which was Iceland closing the gender wage gap. Very excited about anybody closing the gender wage gap, although I really hoped it was Iceland, the frozen foods retail company. But I expected it wasn't. I expected it was the country. So, yeah, great. So they've created this equal wage management standards, or as they're calling it, the system. Mm-hmm. And what it means is that any employer with 25 or more people needs to confirm that they are paying men and women the same amount of money to do the same job. And once they've proven they can do that, they get an accreditation. So, I mean, we talk about employer brand today. There's no worse example of a bad employer brand that you do not have that certification. So I think it's something we should be doing in the UK, and we should be doing in every major country.
Yep, I think it's really interesting. And Iceland, I'm not going to hammer any of the Baltic or Scandi countries because a lot of people say, you know what, because they're a really small country, they can get away with doing this. Partly true, I get it. But at the same time, they do seem to be progressive in many areas. And perhaps the smallness that they have gives them the opportunity to experiment a little bit. They also have a very much more feminine government structure. You know, I think they're all led by women right now. So I wonder whether that also has cascade effect on legislation. It's got to have some positive impact. And yeah, really good examples, practical steps. But interesting enough, it needs to be led by government. This requires government mandate, government support, that's the role that the state has to play. I think is prominent in pay equity. Okay, what else, man?
You kind of think it should be table stakes, really, don't you? We're lauding Iceland for this, and quite rightly, we're lauding Iceland. But it's a bit of a shame that it's needed, and it's a bit of a shame that it's not the standard. And it will become that, no doubt.
There's a lot of legacy there. I mean, there's like 100 years worth of legacy on there that you've got to battle through. And the more I study things, it's like obvious that there's echoes of principles, processes that have just been embedded for decades that we might not even be aware of, but we need to pull out. A good example of this would be negotiating salary. I mean, we would presume, when you and I entered the workforce, you had to negotiate a salary. It was like, of course you do, right? That's the thing that you needed to do. Everyone needed to have individual responsibility for salary negotiation. But it turns out that actually is one of the biggest problems in pay equity because people negotiate in a different way. And there's some evidence to say if a woman negotiated like a man did, they would be penalized for that. They're coming across as too direct or too bullshit or whatever. So, there's variance in terms of how the same behaviors can actually have different impact. So, but the getting rid of the salary negotiation is going to be one of those things that we probably need to do. So yeah, cultural legacies that take ages to chip away at. Hopefully we're getting there. Okay, what else, man?
Hello to Jennifer Van Riet, who has joined us today from Cape Town, and well done to Western Cape, yes, which is where Cape Town is, who are putting together a remote working visa so that people can go and work there for periods of time really easily. They're also introducing better transport and energy initiatives as well. And having never been to South Africa, always having wanted to go there. If I wasn't married with kids, I would love to just go and spend a year working in the Western Cape.
Take the kids, take Holly. Seriously, I've been to Cape Town. Fortunately, I've been there a couple of times now. It's just a beautiful city, great people. Western Cape as well is just a spectacular landscape. And you know what? This is a really interesting post. I think it was shared by Jennifer. And also by Bas van der Hattard, who keeps sharing great stuff. Digital nomadism, folks, new war for talent. War for Talent 2.0 is going to be competition for the digital nomads. And the countries that have basically suffered from losing tourism over COVID-19, I think, are being super innovative in trying to figure out how to compete for this talent, because they're trying to replace those tourist dollars, and they're thinking, you know what, instead of having this person arrive for a week or a weekend, why don't we have this person sit here for 3-6 months or so and provide the means in which this person can work in this country and earn as they would earn anywhere, but live the lifestyle in these great places. So we've seen it with Bermuda, we've seen it with Bahamas, we've seen it with this area now in South Africa. I'm pretty certain any country that has or was dependent on tourism will now be thinking, you know what, we're going this route. And you're going to get a lot of people living in so-called richer places in the world that are going to think, why the hell am I freezing my behind off in this place when I could be earning the same amount of money, having a beautiful sort of landscape and a better lifestyle. So yeah, going to happen.
Yeah, I would really hope that Scotland's competing for that sometime soon as well, because we've got a lot to offer and plenty of space.
Dude, you're going to need like global warming next 100 years. I think. There's no chance Scotland's going to win that race. No disrespect, I love Scotland, but holy crap, that's way too cold. Okay, one more. Give me a couple more, actually, Adam.
Oh, yeah. There's one more that you probably need to add a little bit more to, because I didn't get to read it all, but I was really excited about it. And it's the concept of, pretty sure it's a Harvard Business Review article to do with digital transformation and context collapse.
Right.
I mean, we've got, honestly, the amount of people that are like unable to see eye to eye on things because they're looking at the world from different angles. They don't really understand each other. They're communicating in 140 characters and expecting to have proper context in there. It's just not possible. So context collapse is something that I'm really concerned about as we shift everything online.
Yep, that's right. Super important post. I've just shared it in the chat streams there. Please go read it. It's from MIT Sloan, and it's a really important concept. What is context collapse? And as you say, we're all staring at the same kind of screens, but seeing vastly different worlds. And we don't have necessarily the opportunity to see the context whenever we're engaging with somebody whose opinions that we might disagree with. In fact, we tend to aggregate towards communities and groups who confirm our worldview, and hence our context gets ever smaller, or our ability to see other people's environments and worldviews decreases. Part of the reason why I'm doing the Brainfood Tribune, man, which you wrote that wonderful letter to, Adam, is exactly this. I'm trying to recontextualize a lot of the characters in our community that people have opinions on, but you know what? You actually don't know these people. You only know them because, you've read the post that they posted, or you've heard of podcasts that they're on, or whatever. It's actually a fully fledged human being there that, we need to just stop and recognize there's a lot more information about everybody that we don't know. And it's the wrong thing to do to just, categorize them casually into one group of people that you can then, have broad, sometimes unjustified opinions over. Cool. One more, man, before we get to it.
Well, I think one of the things that COVID-19's done is it's driven a lot more focus within HR onto internal recruitment. And a lot of talent acquisition teams have been repurposed or have taken over responsibility for internal recruitment. And I am still shocked every single day when I talk to a multinational corporation and ask them, how are you managing your internal talent pipeline? And they go, yeah, it's kind of on LinkedIn. What? How is that on LinkedIn? How have LinkedIn got better information about the people that work for you than you do within your own organization, because they're not tracking all this stuff. Salesforce, however, is, and Salesforce is doing a really great job on this. They appointed a guy called Richard Liddington, who I'm pretty sure his background is in mainstream talent acquisition. But he has published an article on LinkedIn which explains the 5 pillars that they use to make sure that internal recruiting is going really, really well. So they are consistency, compliance, transparency, equality, and retention. So one of the interesting things the most interesting thing to me that Richard talks about is they retain people, ironically, by going inside the business and pitching them jobs. Yep. Hung, I've got a new job for you. I think you'd be really brilliant for this job. You've been in your role for 18 months. You look as if you're performing well, and this is a step up, or it'll give you better, for managers, I can imagine, they're getting their teams poached internally. It could be maybe a bit frustrating, but they all have to sign up to agree that, they are in support of the internal recruitment initiative. And I think it's absolutely brilliant, and every company needs to be doing this.
Yep. Please read that post. I've shared it. It's actually from LinkedIn. They've written a really good case study on Salesforce. And what is really exciting about it is that for Salesforce, the key thing is that they've actually got a dedicated internal recruitment team in the true meaning of the word, i.e. they recruit internal staff only. It's not one of those things where you say, oh, the TA guys can handle it. And then the TA is obviously looking externally, and they've got to walk through that political minefield of potentially bringing one person out of team A to team B. Here, you have a team whose only job is to recruit that person from team A to team B. And it's that's their sole focus. And if you look at it from the C-level perspective, they're not seeing staff leave. They're just seeing staff circulated. And what they're seeing is knowledge and skills being retained. So the money that they've spent training this person and getting them enculturated, that's not wasted. They haven't left to a competitor. They've just circulated to a different part of the business and improved. And the challenge is, as you say, going to come at the hiring manager, the line manager level, but presumably they will get value from that circulation at some point as well. They can get people from other teams also. And then, of course, you then pipeline early career talent in. You're going to have sort of a really, almost a metabolic type of system inside your business, rather than this, break and fix scenario that all of us seem to be generally wrestling with when it comes to recruiting. So yeah, great case to go read it.
Williams added a comment in here. For those of you not on Crowdcast but listening to this, he said, fostering true internal mobility whilst reducing the attrition merry-go-round. Who would have thought this is a good approach? Absolutely correct. My vision for every organization is that they have one talent pipeline, and within there is everybody that works for their organization and everybody who works for all of their competitors, and they're all getting considered, whether they're internal or they're external, they're all getting considered for every position. And Specsavers does. I talk about Specsavers a lot, but they do this wonderfully. They've got a community called Spectrum. It was called Green Club. It's called Spectrum. All of the internal people are in there. All of the external people are in there. They all get considered for jobs, and the team approaches people internally and externally. In Salesforce's case, they're deliberately prioritizing, in some cases, prioritizing the internal hires for obvious reasons. It's just better for culture, better for in every single way.
Yeah, and by the way, Akbar, thanks for sharing that from EF. I just wonder, we're talking about Specsavers, EF, Salesforce. Is there a certain size where a company needs to be for internal mobility to actually work? So I'm talking about, there probably is a certain level of, if you like, addressable market, if that's the term, or total liquidity available for it to actually work. If it's like 50 people, maybe it's like too small or too political. Maybe it needs to be into the thousands or something.
I think if it's 10 people, it kind of just works. You don't really need any initiative. If it's 50 people, I don't think it's to do with the size of the organization. I think it's to do with whether it's in-demand talent or not. If these are hard to hire people, you got to focus more on it. If they're easy to hire, it doesn't matter as much.
Right. This is obviously another topic. We're overdue an internal mobility one anyways. We should do one of these every year. It's a really important topic. So I'll line that up at some point. Okay, we're talking about EB, folks. In employer branding in a remote only world. Like, how the hell do you do this? I came up with this idea simply because I thought, you know what, if I was to get a job now, I'll still be sitting in the same damn place, looking at the same damn computer, doing more or less the same thing and talking to no one. How are you going to do EB in this scenario? There's like literally no difference. The only thing that's going to change is my login, and the odd people I might jump into Zoom on. How do you do employer branding in a remote first world? And has it always been tied to being on premise? I mean, let's challenge some of those ideas. So before I bring the guests on here, Adam, let's throw it over to you. I know it's not necessarily your area of expertise, but you have an opinion on it. Employer branding, how do you do it in a remote only world? Can it be done?
Well, as I say occasionally, I would consider it is an area of expertise, but
I think you're fine.
He's just got an assumption I don't know anything about anything. I've been in employer branding since
default to have, Adam. Yeah,
I've been involved with employer branding since 2002. But other than that, I'll have a go at it. Listen, there's one really important thing to me that isn't getting enough airtime, and except for probably from me. Maybe that's because it's a non-issue, or maybe that's because I'm ahead of the bunch. I don't know, but we'll see. There's a company. One of my colleagues, my CTO, is a guy called Mike Hughes, and he was one of the founders of a company called Graham Technologies. Graham Technologies was a very famous tech company in Glasgow in the 90s and 2000s before it was acquired. Lots of people working in tech in Glasgow knew who Graham Technologies was. It was one of the top 5 destination employers. They would have wanted to work there. Graham Technologies goes on to create a remote only or a remote opportunity for everybody. They no longer have the benefit of being famous in Glasgow. They've got to do things in a totally different way. If they want to attract people in South Africa or in the USA or in Pakistan, these people have never heard of Graham Technologies. They don't have the same brand at all to any of those individuals. The thing about companies being famous as one of the famous local employers goes out the window. So that's something that I'd quite like to talk about as part of this. There's a load of other, probably more mainstream aspects to it about how we go about doing it. And of course, it links very closely with talent pipelining and how we go about creating international pipelines. It's possibly harder than ever. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion, and I really love the guests that you've got coming on.
I think it is extremely difficult because I think that is the central challenge. How do you distinguish yourself from every other business that's offering remote only? And I'll be keen to explore that. So let's bring our guests on without further ado. We're gonna go with Helen if she's there. Helen Durkin, who is the employer brand program lead at Indeed. Now, Helen has not put her second name onto the sign up here, so there's 2 Helens. I'm just going to go for one of those.
Does one of them say Durkatron?
Let's hope it's no. If that's probably her, but if not, some Helens coming on. I'm sure she'll be fine. Let's bring on Steve Ward as well. Steve's always good value. And then Akbar and Heidi, we're going to bring you on in a bit. Oh, hi, is that Helen?
Hi.
The right one.
Is it the right Helen?
You got me, sorry.
No worries. Good to see you, Helen. Helen, for the people who don't know you, can you quickly introduce yourself, who you are, what it is you do?
Yeah, of course. Helen Durkin, Employer Brand Program Manager for EMEA at Indeed. Been in Employer Brand for 10 odd years.
Great stuff. And there's Steve Ward. Steve,
hello.
how are you doing,
I'm not Helen Durkin. But here I am.
Steve, can you quickly introduce yourself, who you are, and what it is you do?
Yes, so I'm Steve Ward. I work with Universum, world's largest employer branding agency, and I've been in and around recruitment for longer than half my life, which is scary, and passionate about talent attraction and anything to do with it for about the last 15 years, and so I've always been exploring this world since then. So, but yes, glad to be on this.
And somebody's either growing longer hair or needs a haircut.
It needs a haircut, Adam. My partner threatened to cut it this week, and she was very close to getting the scissors, which I need, but unfortunately, it hasn't cut it October. October was the last time.
I actually like it quite a lot. I prefer you with longer hair, if that doesn't sound too strange. I think you should keep it. Anyway,
you would have loved me in the 80s then, Helen.
Same.
Everyone was hippie. Okay, let's talk about this topic. Employer branding in a remote-only world. So I started a conversation on LinkedIn on this, and everyone was like giving me crap, even though I'm correct. The entire world just doesn't know what they're talking about. But I'm basically saying, you know what? EB was 90% on-premise. It was all about the office. It was all about, hey, we've got a cool environment. We're going to have you this, that, and the other. Check out our canteen. You can use all these facilities we've made for you. All of the budget was spent on this person being on premise. No one thought about remote. And now we're all remote. So how do we do employer branding? Firstly, 2 questions, right? So is it possible to do? And what are the challenges in a remote first world? Let's go with you first, Helen, on that.
So I think firstly for me, obviously everything has changed from an employer brand perspective. But I think if you relied on a cool environment and some free snacks to attract people, I think that was a very bad employer brand strategy in the first place. Of course, it's important to some talent, and we've done internal surveys with our talent talking about when we do go back to the office, what's important to them. And there are some people that are excited about getting the free food again and things, and that's something we'll use as a perk, a benefit, an attraction method, but it's not something that's core to why we ask people to come and work for us. It's not, we don't say, come and work for us because you want free snacks. We say, yeah, there's the benefits of that, because you can come and work in a cool office in central London, which they still want. But for us, our brand was never based on that. It was always about having a strong mission, strong values, and you come to work for Indeed because you want to help people get jobs. And that was always what we were talking about. Yes, we've got great offices. Yes, we've got free snacks. I'm grateful I'm not in the office because I've probably lost a load of weight from not having those free snacks. But, there are a lot of people that we know are going to want to go back to the office, and that's some of the things that they want. But they're going back to the office because they like working for us and they want to go and do a good job, and they want to go and see their friends, and they want to have that communal environment. I think what's going to be interesting is the balance of we've offered up different contracts now, so people can decide whether they can be remote, work from home flexible, or that if they want to be office based, they can be office based. We've given that option to pretty much around 90 to 95% of our roles. What will be interesting is the physical environment, therefore, will be different. So I think it's going to be interesting for managers to make sure that if they have an employee working from home and they have an employee who's in the office, when it comes to team calls or anything around that, they're still being treated the same, whether the physical environment is different. So our behaviours and how we treat people should still be the same. Doesn't matter where they sit. But I think it is going to be an interesting dilemma when some workforce are going to go back and some are still going to be at home, and how that works.
Thanks for that, Helen. Let me just say this. You're saying that Indeed at a contractual level, you've already rolled out these options, right? So every employee's had an email to say, hey, we're going to amend your contract, and you've got to make a call as to whether you want to be remote only, on-premise only, or maybe a bit of both.
Yes, they don't actually have to make the decision as yet, because our offices at the moment, we've said even if our office is open, people don't have to go back until I think it's September. So even if they don't feel comfortable, they don't have to. From that point, if it's within their role profile, they have an option. They can decide. So if they're choosing to go remote, that changes and they can do that. So at the moment, obviously, everyone's remote. So it's once the office is open, and then there's a decision. Yeah, that's one of the things we've changed.
Quick one before I let Adam jump in on this, Helen. Is that like a permanent decision to make, or are you going to be? Can the person oscillate in terms of what they want to do?
I think we're still working out some of the details, but I think they can decide to change. It does depend on market and location. We have some differences in different offices. But it is something, again, they don't have to make the decision now. Some people have, we've got some people who've already decided, I want to be remote, I'm going to stay like this forever. And then some people can just wait and make the decision. Once offices go back, they can do work from home. And then if they go work from home flexible, and if they go, actually I want to be remote, then they can opt into that. It's something that they're still going to be open. It's not you've decided you now work from home flexible, that's all you can do now.
I asked my team back in June a couple of months after moving to home. It's not the size of Indeed, of course. It's 16 people. But I asked them, when we're allowed to go back, do you want to work from the office, work from home, or have an everyday choice? Every single one of them said they want an everyday choice. Asked them again in January, and about half of them just said work from home, not bothered about working in the office at all. Half of them said they want the choice. Half of them said work from home. So there's been a shift. Certainly a small number, only 15 people, but there's been a shift, I think.
That's normal,
people
isn't
used
it?
to it.
Yeah, it's normal when people are just teasing out what the outcomes are. You don't know, so you go for the one that gives you most flexibility. But as you kind of live it a little bit more, you begin to realize I've actually set up my life to work remotely, like we've adjusted, and to switch back, having gone through the pain of adjustment, it's another switch, another series of adjustments you've got to make. I think that can be really problematic. But at the same time, there's other people that have really had to struggle through, particularly I'm thinking if you've got kids, for instance, you got all those types of things going on, like a complicated life domestically, having a big split work and play might actually be a good thing. Work and play, not the right language, but you know what I mean? Office-based and home-based. Okay. Go to you, Steve, on this. A slightly different take on the question. Employer branding, you're working for a big consultancy, and I think you started with that business pre-COVID, and you've seen it kind of post-COVID. So how has the customer base changed in terms of their demands of you when it comes to what they're looking for from a consultant?
Yeah, well, there's definitely newer ideas. I think one of the reasons companies come to Universum is because they feel as though we do research as well as talent research as well as employer branding. So therefore, the knowledge of what talent wants, and this is a really important factor in this. And what I like about what I've just heard from Helen and also from Adam is the opportunity for choice is there to start with. But let's look at this from where employer branding is used often. That's about how do we draw talent in? How do we make ourselves an attractive employer? How do we maintain that attractiveness? What if we're a company that doesn't really care for remote working and actually want to have people in the office? Thank you very much. So as soon as June the 12th or 21st, whatever it is, comes along, we want them all back. Thank you very much. No choices, yada yada. Often the challenge is how's that going to work for us? Is it, can we achieve it? And actually, I think one of the interesting things is companies will apologize. I mean, they'll come to me and say, I'm really sorry, but because it's usually the employer branding lead or the talent acquisition lead, and they say, I'm really sorry, we're coming to you with an employer branding request that is built around the fact we are not going to be embracing remote working going forward. And so it's a real challenge. There are lots of different layers to it. What we always then have to look at with them is about, yes, some of the things that are important to tell a story about being a remote worker or being a new form of worker, and I think some of those are relatively obvious. I think just from looking down the stream of the comments in your LinkedIn posts yesterday, the day before, whenever it kicked off, of course it's about people's well-being. It's about people caring for people, demonstrating that we care for people. It's about engaging the employees in much more EGC activities, much more stuff coming from within the business and out, very much human kind of stuff. And I think that goes without saying, but that's not new. That was, I'm not being funny, people did that fast in March last year. There were companies doing, I remember doing a webinar in April last year, presenting about 5 companies who had gone to different forms of attraction campaigns and employer generated content campaigns. And they were fun and brilliant. And they kind of brought this kind of almost took a little bit of creative fun from remote existence. The reality now is that people, I'm intrigued by your one, Adam. You mentioned that 50% of people are now kind of going, actually, I'm quite comfortable where I am. Thank you very much. We're finding the opposite is often true. That actually now people are done with working from home. They sit in a London apartment sharing a flat with Robbie and Phil, and Robbie and Phil stink, and their pants are on the washing machine behind them, and they're on the Wi-Fi as well. And I think it's absolutely accurate.
I know Robbie and Phil.
Robbie and Phil, they're definitely got.
You can make up your own Robbie and Phils. But the point is like these people don't want to work from home. They want to be in the office. They want to go and see friends. They want to do so. So I think the challenge is not having is not being rigid about it to start with. It's open, and that's why I love what you just said, Helen, about the way in which you're changing that kind of culture. I think it's brilliant. But the reality is some companies just are. And therefore, what they've got to identify is, if we're not going to be remote workers, what have we got to offer both our internal talent and our external talent that is still attractive, that's still unique, that's still remarkable, etc. You almost have to focus away from some of the softer elements of employer brands, particularly things such as office stuff, on which totally disagree with you on the importance of the office paint and all that kind of stuff. But focus on and I'm going to give a name shout out to Fabio Frizas, so the guy who I don't know who Fabio is. I don't know whether he's on the call, the session now, but he commented in your thing. He said, "Isn't employer branding all about the work and the quality of work you do anyway?" And actually, I think that's the most underrepresented area of employer brand. We focus on the hearts and the minds and the purposes and the unified visions and all those kind, and they're true, they're important. But the reason a developer in Salesforce chooses to go to work for a developer in a neighboring company is because they're going to do something remarkable in that new company that they don't do in Salesforce. They're going to add to their skill set. They're going to strengthen their, and so there still needs to be, in all of this moving world that we have, there are things that remain consistent that need to be reassuring for companies. Because I think if we tell every company to tip their toy box upside down and refill it again, it's chaos, utter chaos. We've got to try and find consistency and identify how do you still be strong at what you're amazing at, but with different parameters, with different varying physical parameters.
I've just realized something, Steve. The companies that have decided to go on premise, and in many respects, they're kind of going against the conventional, the consensus that's evolving, that, you need to give the flexibility. I guess they're going to put more money towards companies like you guys, because they're going to say, crikey, we now actually we've got a PR problem. Forget about employer branding. We have to do this. So very interesting to know what you're advising these on-premise only businesses to do. When you say hard sort of stuff, are you saying you've got to increase comp and you've got to kind of do stuff like that?
Not necessarily, because I think that's not necessarily always the deciding factor. That's a later decision in the process as to why you join a company. It's not a reason why you apply for a job, because often the salary isn't an issue. It's about, it's identify, one of the things that we're all about in Universum is understanding that different talent audiences want different things. You can't just say, oh, remote is great, everybody go remote. It doesn't work like that, because tech people might like remote, for example. Finance people might not like remote. They want to work around their colleagues. They're not comfortable at home. Other people, salespeople, for example, one of the things that we're identifying, salespeople don't want to be remote. They want to be recognized. They want to be visible. They want to be present. They want to be seen. They want their career aspirations to grow. So it's identifying the elements. When I say hard elements, I'm talking about career progression. I'm talking about skill set development. I'm talking about the quality of the boss, the quality of the team around them. How are they going to improve as a professional because they're joining an organization? That was true 20 years ago. And it's true 10 years ago, and it's true a year ago, and it's true now, that people join companies because they want to enhance their career. They want to develop their career in many areas, I'm not blanket talking, because the whole point of data is that you don't blanket talk, you identify those different elements. But one of the common factors is career.
Let me just say this real quick. Jennifer's asked a question along those lines, and if anybody's listening to this thing and wants to ask questions to any of our guests, please use the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of the screen. We're going to get to them at the end of the show. So ask them there, don't ask them in the chat stream. Go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to say, there's Steve's right about, every individual wants something different. Every organization has to amplify different things, because the quality, Steve mentioned, the quality of the work that you do, or the type of work that you do, that's one of the big aspects of the employer brand. And it really is. But there is definitely, if you're working for Greenpeace, you know what your purpose is, you know what your organization is trying to achieve, and that is highly emotional potentially for you. If you're working for an actuarial firm whose job is to make a pension fund more valuable, it's not quite the same. So they've got to amplify different things. They might have a nicer office, or they might have higher pay, or they might have to do those things that are a little less emotional and a bit more just, economic kind of driven, to get the right type of people to go and do that. So there's like a marketing. There's got to be a marketing mix considered in every single employer brand.
Without question, it's such a. Sorry, Helen, you go ahead.
I was going to say, isn't that what we've always done though? We've always segmented our messages depending on what the talent wants. So I think what for me is interesting is that we're all working from home right now. So the businesses that are choosing to then bring everyone back and not let people work from home, I find that very interesting because it's like they're working from home now. So why are you saying that means that the job they're doing right now, they're not doing it to the standard that you'd like? Or what is the reason that you're not giving them the choice? Because I get for businesses that can't. So obviously for retail, for some of the industries that have had to put their staff on furlough, I appreciate that. But for the businesses where they've got people working from home now, they're hitting their objectives, they're doing good work, to then say, oh, no, but that was just because of a pandemic. Rather than, actually, no, we could see that you were still doing a great job, so we're going to give you the opportunity. Because, yes, some people are going to say, actually, no, I really want to go back to the office because I've got kids at home and I would like to come back, or I've got 5 housemates and we're working in the kitchen. So I think it is going to be interesting. I think it is going to be tough in any of those industries where if we're all going after talent and there's a company that's saying, actually, we'll give you the choice. And then there's one going, no, you have to come to the office, even if they offer development opportunities, because we're all going to be going, oh, okay, we want to offer development opportunities. So I think it's a bad decision. I get why they may want to do it, but I think it's going to be very interesting when they come back and it's going to be a different market. And from an employer brand perspective, it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough to say to their current staff as well, because their current staff are going to go back and go, oh, wait, there's a similar business over there, though, is saying they'll offer me both.
Yeah. And this Stephen Rothberg on the right-hand side, I'm going to challenge what he said a little bit, but I get it. He said most people join companies to pay their bills and don't give a rat's ass about employer brand. No, they don't think about employer brands. But what they do is, if I'm, and a great conversation I was having this morning with a customer who are in hospitality, right? So they've had it tough this last year, right? So they're now going to see in that little zone where they can think, right, we might be back to work soon. We might be going back to some. But what's happened in the last year, of course, is people like Amazon and et cetera, are targeting their talents. They're targeting their talent, their furlough talent, and saying, look, you can come work with us. We're a big company. We've got security, yada, 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 blah, blah. But they're both levels where they're probably earning, £12 an hour, £11 an hour, whatever the kind of the lower level rate is, or whatever, to pay the bills. The characteristic of somebody who needs to pay the bills, get to work in the morning, blah, blah. There's still a challenge to kind of go, what's more attractive? Is it working for this hotel group over here? Is it working for Amazon over here? Is it this factory around the corner, blah, blah? How they treat people and the opportunities they give them to express themselves in whatever the best way it is are still important. Those things still remain. So even at minor kind of blue collar level, these things are super, super important alongside the hierarchical needs of paying the bills and the roof over the head and all that kind of stuff.
They shouldn't give a rat's ass about employer brand, because employer brand isn't a thing. It's completely subliminal. So it's how they feel. It's how they feel. It's not, I think I like that company's employer brand. They should never even know anything about it. But if you think about, I'm working in construction, and that company that runs that site over there has got a 5% daily death rate, and that company over there has got a 0% accident rate over the last 3 years. I'm going to go and work for the company that they're not going to die at. So I think everybody gives a rat's ass about employer brand, but they don't know it's employer brand.
Yeah, this is why I think the lunches actually make a difference, because it's a subliminal message. You're giving people like these endorphins and satisfactions. But anyway, I'm on a losing wicket on that, so I'm going to stop playing that game. Let's talk about, because I noticed the time's flying by. Let's go to the idea of, okay, how can a remote, you've shifted to remote only, right? How do you distinguish yourself from your competitors that are also now remote? Like, what can you do from an EB perspective to do that? I'm just thinking all you can do is crank up the money. Like, what else is there? Helen, let's go to you in that. What do you think?
Yeah, you can't. If money is important to some people, then like I said, if some people just want the money, that's fine. That would attract a certain type of person. For us, we've done several things internally. As you said, it wasn't me that did it, because employer brand is what people feel about how the business is treating them. So to stand out, there's different things. We've launched a voluntary work program so people can have reduced schedules, 80% schedule for 80% pay for 90 days. They can have unpaid leave, 30, 60, 90 days. We've got an indefinite reduced schedule, which we've now launched. And that's whether or not we go back to the office or not, that's now part of what we offer. We have what is called U days. So we're offering more days off a month, so 1 day extra off a month to focus on mental health and things like that. There's just lots of things that we've done that are about how people feel to come to work, and that's how we will differentiate ourselves in terms of our mission is the same. It was the same before, the same as it is now. We've not changed that, but in terms of how we're treating our people, but also what we're doing for the community is what has kind of started. We've ramped up more on around environmental. We've got an environmental, social and governance team that we've got. So a lot of it's around our culture that we've changed, because that is how we think. That is what we believe is where we want to go, and therefore the types of people that we want to attract in the future.
Brilliant. Let me say this real quick then, just for my own kind of embedding my own brain there, Helen. What you're saying is mission stays the same. You're going to help people get work. That's the clear mission of the business. What you are doing though is looking after the employees better by giving them all kinds of options, flexibility of working styles and stuff of this type, which is what they've kind of told us that they want to do. So this should be a big benefit really for all employees, right? Suddenly they're getting stuff that they wouldn't have previously received. And the second thing is you're saying, okay, let's connect that also with corporate responsibility stuff, outside of Indeed, the bigger picture type of challenges. That's the big two mix into the EB side for Indeed.
Yeah, for sure. And then just in terms of our exec as well, have really throughout this time stepped up. We have weekly Q&A sessions with our CEO. So we have hosts every week. CEO and the CEO have been hosting to 10,000 people is what we're at now, and they take questions. And the whole idea when we launched those was around, obviously when this pandemic started, we're in HR, we're in recruitment as a business. There was a lot of anxiety. We were seeing people getting laid off in certain other businesses, and everyone was getting worried, and they made a decision to right, we're going to answer your questions. We may not have the answers there and then, but if we don't, we'll come back to you. And so it's always been around to make people feel included and to communicate, and they're continuing that whether or not, once we come out of this. So a lot of it is, it's around just really going back to what we stand for.
That's a really important point, folks. So C-level communicating regularly with the employee base in a public way. So this is not like the old email from the CEO. Remember, you used to get those every 6 months, and everyone wondered who's going to get fired. No, these are like weekly open sessions. The person's going to be on air similar to this, and he's going to be addressing the entire employee base. I think that's a wonderful thing to be doing, and just showing up is part of it, right? The person being there and committing the time to do that, I think is really, really cool. Okay, quickly go to you, Steve.
Just really quickly, for the first eight months of the pandemic, my wife was CMO for a pretty large company, team of 60. Every Friday she posted every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, she posted a 2, 3, 4 minute video, something like that, shared it on Teams to the entire team. And once a week she did an Ask Me Anything open session that anybody could just come and join. It feels like a little bit over communication, but that's absolutely what was needed.
No such thing, right? You've got to over communicate, especially from C-level. Okay, Steve, let's go to you. Same question. EB, I've shifted everything to remote. I prefer this. How do I continue to compete with the best talent out there? What techniques?
Some of the biggest, hardest thing now, actually, because needless to say, everybody's learnt a lot this last year. And I think let's caveat this by saying it's probably been employer brand's best year in some respects. And what I mean by that is people have realized the importance of an employer brand, care for employees, less about the aesthetics, more about the heart, more about the human elements of people and employees. So I think those things are important, and I think those goes without saying. The C-level communication has been top notch, etc. I like the idea that there's so many companies have embraced much more last year about micro communities inside organizations, finding common, where we lose physical social engagement, we gain new layers of social engagement. So from a soft well-being, human element, that's super, super important, because it's easy to feel isolated if you're in some way, in any way different. So I think that is a massive part, and I think so many companies have done this really, really well.
Hang on, Steve. Micro communities. Can you just sit on that a little bit?
I'm thinking things like LGBT plus communities, etc. But even, I mean, yeah, there are those sort of things. But even kind of like finding groups of, football, people who finding common ground that brings. One of the things that this pandemic has done for organizations is shrink the organization. All of a sudden, we're not this office, that office, that office, that office anymore. We're all an organization. We get on all the same calls with each other now, all those CEO calls and the town halls and all that kind of stuff. And so all of a sudden, we're shrinking the organization, finding sort of commonality. And I think that's a really good way to bring the human element in. But if I flip that side then to the other bit, going back a little bit to what I alluded to earlier about the slightly more harder career element, one of the important things to demonstrate in this is, how can I succeed in an organization if I'm remotely? Have I still got the ability to succeed and do my job as well as, if not better, than I did when I'm sat next to all my colleagues, and I've got my boss in front of me, and I've got the canteen next to me, and all that kind of stuff? How can I still be so? And people like, certainly salespeople, tech people, anybody in a performance sort of role will be looking for that inside an organization. When they see a remote role, they want to know, yeah, that's fine, but am I going to be sat on my own in the corner of my bedroom, or am I really going to be embraced? Have I got the tools? Learning development, I think, will play a massive part in the way in which we look after talent moving forward on a remote basis, is the ability to access peer-to-peer learning, career prospect learning, etc., etc. I think that's important too. So that's from a differentiating point of view, I think that's a really important one, because it's quite unique to each company as to how they can support their employees through that journey.
Yeah, amazing. I tell you what, I hope someone's making notes on this, because there's already like a couple of bullet points I think you can go away and take away to think about, at least, if not directly implement. Listen, I've noticed the time, folks, so we're going to have to say goodbye to Helen and Steve and bring on Heidi and Akbar ASAP. Helen, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful having you on the show. Hang around if you still want to watch the rest of it. It'd be great to see the rest of your comments. Same to you, Steve. Don't cut your hair. I love it. Have a good weekend, you two. I'll speak to you soon, okay?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Helen. Thanks, Adam.
Helen, what does your teacher?
Sorry. I had to bomb them off.
Trying to find out what Helen's t-shirt said.
I'm sure it said
it was an Indeed message.
Yeah, definitely. Indeed, a great, which they are. But it was really interesting to see what those two are planning to do from an EB side. Now, what I'm going to do now, folks, is actually bring on a couple of recruiters. So these people, Heidi and Akbar, have the responsibility to do the recruiting. And I want to sort of put some practical sort of reality here. Okay, here's the big idea: is how does it actually legit affect you when you're recruiting? So Akbar, can see you online there. Akbar, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Hi, I am the head of talent for Storyblok, which is a Series A startup, which has been remote first and international. So that's 14 nationalities in 11 countries. But previously, before that, I was at a large international edtech, 58,000 people, and my team was across 21 countries. So I've had hands-on experience doing it before and after COVID.
Yep, fantastic. And I'm really looking forward. I mean, I love the people who are coming like EB specialist side, but I really wanted to speak to you, Akbar, and also to you, Helen, to Heidi, should I say, to understand what it is from the operational point of view, like the practical side of it. Heidi, good to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Of course. I hope you can hear me because I was unsure when it was coming through. So I just recently joined Vivino, which is the world's most downloaded wine app, and I am the talent acquisition and employer branding partner there.
Ah, cool. So you do TA and EB. And in fact, most people that don't carry an EB specialist will have to do a lot of EB, right? If you're TA these days, that's part of the job. So let's go to this. How has the shift to remote changed your approach to employer branding? Let's go with you first on that, Akbar.
So were slightly lucky where this was our general direction of travel, but we had to really figure out, okay, loads of people are maybe saying similar things to us now. Are we still exciting? I saw the first thing I did was actually looked at what is our sunk cost in terms of collateral. So do we have any offices? When do those contracts end? Can we do all the plumbing side of being truly remote? So paying people on time and doing their remote office setup. And we went straight for 2 amazing providers in First Base for all our tech spend and Deal for all of our payroll. So then we started maybe padding that out to explain that us being remote and flexible, actually, this is what we actually do to make sure you get paid in the currency of your choice where you work.
Okay, Akbar, let me interrupt you right there. You're saying shifting to remote, the first thing you've got to get right is actually make it sure that the remote is like operating. In other words, the employees that are going to be joining the business, they can be guaranteed the payment in the right way. They can be guaranteed the facilities to actually operate properly in remote. Don't assume that they're able to do that without the company's support. So I love the fact that's very conscious is the first thing that you think about. Go ahead, Akbar. I interrupted you.
No. So in my previous business, so last year I was at a business that had a fantastic, beautiful office in High Street, Kensington. I mean, it was absolutely world class, and people were coming to join in. And that contract for that office was X number of years into the future. It would be crazy for them to throw away that spend and throw away some of that social capital and the story around it and say we're going fully remote. But in my position now, I was like, we don't have the office. We are in 13 different countries, but actually let's still view, do we have the plumbing? Do we have the building, the remote working building in terms of all of the structure to allow us to offer and speak about remote working properly?
Yep, fantastic. Switch to you, Heidi, on this. Quite new as well. I think your journey with Akbar is similar in the sense you've joined the company sort of really during the last 12 months or so. So let's lean on this and also the previous company you're at. How has COVID-19, the shift to remote, changed your EB strategy, or has it?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think just like Akbar said, that the first in Vivino, the first point of view is just to make sure that everybody has the equipment that they need to be able to work from home and to understand every person's personal challenges in terms of, are they homeschooling kids? What kind of office place do they have to work by? And do they have the necessary internet speed or the equipment or the mental health area to be able to work from home? So basically looking at the equipment, but also looking at the mental health of things.
What if they don't? I mean, so say, listen, I actually don't have this facility. I don't have great space. Internet's terrible. Like, what are you going to do about
that? We actually have, I'm sorry, Akbar.
No, after you, please.
We actually have been supplying this to our employees. So you can see I have a whiteboard behind me because I love to be creative. Maybe it's a chair or a screen. And even if you don't have that space at home in Copenhagen, it has been possible for some people to come in, even if the office is closed. But then we're just really careful about it and we plan it ahead so people can get away from that. Or even one of the opportunities that we're looking into is also maybe rental, the hotel offices or other spaces where you could just get away for a day or two.
Yeah, let me just, Akbar, I know you want to say something, but I just want to summarize real quick for the audience. Basically, Heidi, what you're saying is let's ensure the person can work from home. If they can't, you need to provision the things that make that happen. Okay, if they need kit, let's give them the kit. If they need additional stuff, that's amazing. If their home environment is not suitable, let's find a spot where they can work. And I love the fact that, I mean, hotels are starting to repurpose now into being more micro time for office space because they know they're not going to get the same degree of occupancy as they were before. So we're going to start seeing a lot more real estate open up, even all the empty office space. Like you can imagine that being like almost a timeshare type stuff going forward. So there could be all kinds of opportunities available for workers that don't work in the office, but maybe need an office to do so. Okay, Akbar, you were about to say something. Do you want to continue that thought if it was still relevant?
Yeah, I think Helen previously raised a good point about flexibility. So what we've installed is we've partnered with Regus, which matches our footprint in 113 countries, and said, okay, what do you want to do if you join us? We will deliver a bespoke size chair and a desk to you, and as well as your computer and stuff. Or we take some of that cash, and then that is your co-working space, membership in the city of your choice. But we still give you the laptop, the second monitor, and stuff like that. So giving people that choice, and there could be personal reasons, or I don't want to be anywhere near my kids during working from home. Can I please leave? That aspects of it, and we're seeing that actually in how commercial spend is being done. You used to, I've got one quick article here actually that essentially talks about it, where you see office space investment is now moving away from a central in London, like central London postcode, to residential mini ones that maybe we sneered at and we said, I won't work there now. They're now becoming more important, I think. I'll share it later, but
I've got a question
It's the
about.
same- No,
Sorry,
I,
go on,
I,
go ahead, Heidi.
no, it's just
Go on.
because it was really interesting what Akbar was saying about the shifting out of London, because the same thing is happening in Silicon Valley and in Bay Area in San Francisco, because it's so expensive to live there. And since this pandemic started, people have been forced to stay in different parts. And during that, they have simply found out, maybe I want to be closer to my family in Colorado, or maybe I want to buy a house that's a tenth of the price somewhere else, and I can still have my cool job and still be connected to tech, but just have better conditions doing it.
Absolutely. Same with New York as well. There's a big. My question is, every single thing that we do in recruitment links to the employer brand. So my question is there a problem is there a social mobility problem? Because if we're expecting people to do assessments and things like that on a device, not everybody has access to like a smashing laptop or an iPad or something like that. So some people might be doing this on like quite an old phone without like super speed broadband and things. I wonder if that's been a problem that either of you have considered, or you know other people that have, and if so, if you've had any thoughts about what we can do about it, because I think it's an issue we need to address wholesale.
Heidi?
I think it's a really good question that you're raising. The kind of assessments that we're working with right now wouldn't necessarily require any majority of it, but I think it's a good question, and I think it's something that you need to consider going down the line. There's always going to be these inequities in no matter how you work with talent acquisition, right? So, and I don't think that the pandemic necessarily is the reason for that. Those questions or those issues would be still there before and after.
Well, we used to invite people to like assessment centers and things. We'd invite them to come into an office, and if everybody has to do it remotely, then that could create further inequality. But I guess the companies
that was also problematic for a lot of people. I remember being an impoverished student and taking a trip to London. It was like a 4-hour trip. It would cost you £100, and you'd have to get a hotel if it was the wrong time of day. It would be a £200 spend to do it. Compared to someone who's living locally, they would basically outcompete me because they could do more of those sessions and I couldn't do it. So I think remote is ultimately, it's obviously not perfect, but it's going to be an equalizer in terms of quality, because most people do have access to a device where they could complete a lot of this stuff. And in fact, some of the better tools are actually mobile first as well, whereby almost everyone on the planet has a mobile device. That could be a massive equalizer. Okay, folks, listen, we are sprinting towards the end of this show, so I want to just keep going with this. Let's look practically. We talked about techniques and what you've been doing, you two, but what have you seen? What have you seen in terms of applicant flow, applicant quality? Is there any, like, are you encountering like sudden challenges somewhere? You thought, oh, hang on, suddenly this thing where we were competitively advantaged before, now it's no longer our big player. We have to do things differently. Thoughts on this, any of you two?
I think the biggest kind of meta data point that we have in our industry is location. So wherever you go, whichever job solution you're using, usually it says location, and then it locks it in, and that's how the SEO is drawn around it. When you go to certain platforms that do generally offer outside of what, for example, a Vienna-based startup, but if I move it to a crazy point where it says where my job is being posted, am I ready to have somebody from Uzbekistan apply for my job? Does my payroll and HR allow me to say yes to him? Is her or his internet connection up to the standard? All of that stuff there. That's been an interesting challenge with me. When people have said they're fully remote, I've kind of gone, oh, actually, we cover 113 countries, but is that all of the countries? No, I'm missing 140 from that list.
Damn interesting. I wonder whether internet speed will soon become a qualifying criteria. Internet reliability, absolutely. Why not? If you're working as a site reliability engineer and you have to be 24/7, no doubt, and you happen to be in a hurricane zone or something, then you can say, yeah, there's a legit risk that you may not be able to perform your role, given your current at-home situation. So it's fascinating, I think, to think about there. Okay, go to you, Heidi, on this. What have you practically seen in terms of applicant flow and your talent attraction generally?
So I think what at least I've seen both with myself and other companies that I've spoken to is that the number of applications have actually gone up, but the quality of them are not necessarily the same. So in some areas, applications have been going up, and in some areas, they have been going down. It depends a little bit about location. It depends a little bit about the country, how the different lines of businesses has been hit. So that's one of the effects that I have seen in applications. But I think the major shift, if we need to look at that, is more on the interviewing and onboarding part. Because I think in the attraction part, there's one thing, but you're still living off maybe some of the employer branding, or you're doing your sourcing, so you're getting the outreach out there whenever you're doing it. But then there is, how do you actually uncover in the interviews that this would be a great match when you can't meet people anymore, when you can't invite them to come to your country or to do some kind of human interaction. So that, and then once they're on board and they're fully remotely onboarded, how do we actually keep a community sense and a feeling of company culture?
Well, these are big challenges, aren't they? Go ahead. Was it Akbar was saying, or you, Adam? I didn't see.
I don't mind jumping in. Simply, this is a real point. So I was due for a promotion several years ago. I was living in Shanghai, same internal business that did great internal mobility. Part of the rule there was that I did all of my interviews, but they still had to fly me from Shanghai to London, put me in a hotel, check I was a human being, and then flew me back for basically a holiday back to see my mum. My challenge is, if you can fall in love with somebody online, if you can spend a hell of a load of your earnings on crazy stock that you never talk about, you can still definitely measure culture. You can still get people excited, and people are people purely online. We shouldn't try and run for the amazing things that happen face to face. They're going to be different levels of quality. You're going to have to ask smarter questions, but we shouldn't try to replicate what is that water cooler moment or that Friday pub visit that we have there. And I took remember, they knew me. They have promoted me twice before. They still spent $5,000 there and back to fly me to London on short notice. So don't spend that money, work smarter, and don't try and replicate that face-to-face interaction.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it as well. And I think, Akbar, this is, what we're doing right now is we might as well be standing around the water cooler, shooting the breeze about the impact of remote working on employer brand. We're having exactly the same interaction, I think, right here. as we would be if we were in a room together.
Yeah, I think it's very close.
Disagree a little bit with that, to be honest.
Mhm.
Because
Go ahead, Heidi, quickly.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I disagree a little bit about that, because it does take, just like you said, Akbar, it takes different things, it takes smarter questions. And one of the reasons that it does that is because some part of human communication is lost over a screen. Plus, there's also, Zoom fatigue, and there's just something happening when you're sitting in front of a person instead of a screen.
Okay, we've got to move to the questions real quick, folks, because we're running out of time. I do beg your pardon, everybody. There's 2 questions here that are worth dealing with. Jennifer Van Riet. Jennifer, I hope you're still with us. She has asked, how does potentially not having more experienced mentors on site influence less experienced workers in terms of their professional development? Super important issue. A lot of work is learn on the job, sit next to that person. That person's more or less just watch for 2 weeks. We don't have that anymore. Everyone's remote. What do we do with the young person that hasn't got a clue? Thoughts on this? Go to you first, Akbar.
Guider.ai. Simple as that. It takes your whole Guider.ai. It takes your whole mentoring process that happens there. It formalizes it. It gives you visibility, and it lets you basically. There's loads of diversity challenge points with that. It's always like who got on best with that lead solution engineer, who had their arm around them. Something like that just allows you to formalize that mentoring process. Have a key task that would make them pass or fail in their probation as part of the interview process, so that you're already checking, are they ready? Can they be onboarded quickly? And can you do more sexier stuff when they do start? Those would be my 2 points.
Okay, amazing. Can you share the link to this product in the chat stream, Akbar? That sounds like an interesting tool to investigate. Okay, Heidi, I'm going to ask you the next question, okay? This one is this is from Raj. Raj is saying, you can argue a company is better having everyone work from home or everyone remote. So he's arguing against the hybrid model. He's saying, you know what, it's simpler for everyone to be working in one way or the other, because the hybrid model is going to bring inconsistencies, fairness issues, and huge overheads. I think he's probably right in all of those points. What's your response to that, Heidi?
I think there's a sense of truth in it, of course, but the equity already exists. I think we need to stop thinking about what we need as a company and then start thinking about what you want as a candidate, and be more curious about how can we accommodate to what makes your life better. And if we really want truly to work with equity, it has to come with that person, and not making everybody equal, but actually lifting that particular person to do their job.
Yep, amazing. So basically, change of focus needed. It's like a change of focus away from company centrism to candidate centrism, I guess. Okay, Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Heidi. We're going to have to finish the show here, folks, because we're well over time. I just want to thank Akbar and Heidi for coming on. Great to see you both. I think it might be your first times on the show, actually. I can't remember whether you've both been on Brainfood Live before, but we'll definitely get you back at some other point if you're not tired of it, because it'll be great to see you again. But okay, you two have a good weekend. We'll see you soon, okay?
You too. Bye-bye.
Cool. And that's about it. Fascinating. Too big a topic to be handling in one show, I think. So EB in a remote first world, some interesting things. I really want someone to write this up, because there was at least 4 or 5 points, wasn't it, Adam, that you could pick out and think that could really work. And I'll have to rewind and listen back to this to figure out exactly what those were. But yeah, interesting challenges for everybody. And I think EB is going to be even bigger in this future world, simply because of the desire for companies to compete. When it's harder to do so, you can't rely on a big office budget, basically.
Yeah, a massive subject. So many nuances to it around different countries and cultures and industries. And yeah, massive subject.
That
was really great as well, though. Really great guests, great discussion. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was. And that's about it, folks. We're back next week. If you do enjoy this type of conversational format, follow the channel. It'll give you a quick update, no spam. It'll simply tell you what's happening and when. Next week, we're going to be talking about, related to this, how do you actually reject candidates? So what is the best way to reject a candidate so that they are empowered to be more successful the next time round? We know candidates have basically encountered, a much more competition, many more applications to jobs. Has our candidate experience efforts been poor in response to that? We've got a brilliant amount of guests again talking about policy, technique, templates, tools. It's going to be awesome. Make sure you register for that show. Okay, finally, also, if you are a final shout out to our sponsors again, CA3. If you're interested in getting some direct boutique support for your EB efforts, check out this company. You can speak to their super experienced founding team, and they're going to help build a relationship with you in order to provide the sort of EB experience that you want for your candidates. That's about it, folks. You have a good weekend. I'll see you soon. Right, that's it, man. All good. By the way, Adam, before I let you go, can I ask, what is that noise when you kind of, are you moving the computer when you do that? Or are you scratching something?
When I'm doing what?
Move your computer again.
Is it that noise?
No, move your computer. Yeah, it is. Basically, when you shift your computer, there's like the mic pickup is quite, prominent. Just want to let you know.
Try and not do that. Yeah. The problem is I'm sitting on this chair for I don't know. Yeah. Well,
is your back hurting?
8 hours a day. No, but I shift from sitting upright to slouching and just to move a little bit.
You know what I've done? I think because you're a boxing fan, I'm not saying get in the ring, but I think shadow boxing could potentially be very good for the back because you're talking all the time, aren't you? Talking meaning the cue.
Yeah.
So
there's nothing wrong with my back. It's just moving around. But I am a massive boxing fan. You're right.
Yeah. What's happening? AJ versus Tyson, right? That's happening, is it?
Yeah, that's probably going to be like June or July or something like that. We've got at the end of this month, we've got Dillian White and Povetkin 2. White and Povetkin 2. Yeah,
I reckon Povetkin's going to knock him out again.
Oh no, he was winning. I mean, he was clearly winning.
I guarantee you, it will be an action replay. It will be White winning on every round up until round 9, and then Povetkin will just lamp him out with a random left hook or something.
If that happens, it will be an uppercut, and if that happens again, then unfortunately for Dillian White, his hopes of becoming world heavyweight champion he's going to go back to fighting Derek Chisora again. It's
done. And Chisora will still be there. Like in 2035, Chisora and White will still be around.
Chisora looks like he's fighting Joseph Parker.
Really?
Next. Yeah. Joseph Parker fought his countryman, Junior Fa, last Saturday. And it was great. It was on at like 10 o'clock in the morning. It was on at 9:30 in the morning here. Last Saturday morning. That was amazing getting up and watching, a top class heavyweight competition first thing.
I'll tell you what, I think Chisora is never boring, but Chisora against Parker will be very interesting. They're two well-matched fighters, I think.
I'd expect Chisora. I'd expect Parker to win, but I don't know. It'll be pretty close. The other one that I'm really looking forward to. It looks like Usyk and Joyce is confirmed.
That's a bit weird, isn't it? Usyk's like small as compared to... Anyway.
Well, they're both heavyweights. Usyk's gone up from cruiser to heavyweight, and Joyce, they call him the juggernaut. He just keeps walking at you slowly.
But he's very, very slow. It'd be a very, very small, fast heavyweight versus the walking building, basically.
I remember you commenting on how slow he is.
He's like a wardrobe.
Look what he did to Dubois.
It's like fighting a wardrobe. All right. That's it. Have a good week, everybody.
Cheers.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.